X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is the weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every X-Men story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I am Zach. And Adam,
Happy
Valentine's Day.
Wait, what? You got the wrong time of year, Zach. I believe we're headed steamrolling towards the Christmas.
Then
am I in the wrong time of the year?
I think we might have timed this list poorly then, because this week we are talking all about some love and romance and 3 stories about 3 couples.
Oh, I have some thoughts, man. We got some stuff on the show today, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think we've really had like a smackdown on the program lately, but this is going to be an interesting one.
We haven't, and I'm actually a little surprised. I thought the X-Campus episode last week was going to fall into that direction, but really we stayed civil.
Yeah, well, there was fun stuff last week. I had less fun prepping for this particular episode. I'm being completely honest.
It's not great, and some of this pain and some of this pleasure come to us from WQM Comics. Dan, who was on our show for the Acts of Friendship episode, jumped over and said, "Hey, I'd like you guys to talk about this story that I remember from when I first started reading comics." And Dan.
Oh, Dan. Thanks.
Oh,
Dan.
Oh, man.
I like Dan. I didn't like this story.
Here's the thing. Patreon only says that it was WQM Comics. I assume it's Dan since he kind of heads up everything over there.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
maybe
if it's not, if someone else, then we're still going to call you Dan. So sorry, Dan.
All right, so we might as well pull back the curtain. What is it that we're talking about here for our first story, Zach?
The first story that we are going to talk about comes to us from the far distant past of 1996, and it is Pryde and Wisdom, a 3-issue miniseries by Warren Ellis and Terry Dodson.
Okay.
Can we start with the fact that both Warren Ellis and Terry Dodson are very talented creators and like all-stars?
That's
true.
This is not their best work. Let's put it that way. This is still early Dodson, before he's really mastered his amazing style, which he rightfully gets as much cover work as I hope he can handle. Warren Ellis is obviously, firing on all cylinders when he's good. This is neither of their best days at work. Would you agree?
Nah, this is a story about Kitty Pryde and Pete Wisdom, who are a couple.
Deep breath.
We'll get to it.
How old is Pete Wisdom?
Nope, we're not going to get to it. We're just going to go right into it. Pete Wisdom is whatever age Warren Ellis was in 1996. That's how old Pete Wisdom is. Because look, there is a long time honored tradition of people shipping Kitty Pryde.
Sure.
Creators who had their first crush on Kitty Pryde and then, like to talk about her or move their story forward using her. She is a good character, so I understand that.
Yeah.
However, she is often brought into romantic entanglements. Some of them make less sense than others. We have a future episode in a couple of weeks that's going to get deep into that, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. But save that for a rainy day. This is Warren Ellis. Just like Pete Wisdom is the most Warren Ellis character. He's rude. He's very British. He smokes. He drinks. He dresses nice. He's every Warren Ellis character, right?
He's insufferable. I mean, it's really a distinct displeasure to hang out with this character. And it just completely boggles my mind that this character is somebody that Kitty Pryde would be interested in any way. in any way, like, and I know that everybody has their own particular, ships that they really will go to bat for, but
Especially with Kitty Pryde. Let's
yes,
be very
sure.
clear. A Kitty Pryde gets the most amounts of ships. She's like a navy.
Sure. I mean, because everybody's got their ideal kitty partner. I can't imagine, given the choices, that Pete Wisdom is the ideal candidate. And we haven't even talked about the story at all, because the overwhelming problem here, I think, has to do with the fact that the two of them have zero chemistry, and yet we are expected to believe that they are like madly teenage in love, which just doesn't
Pete
register.
Wisdom's not a teenager.
No.
And because of that, Kitty Pryde at least shouldn't be a teenager. She turned 15 in the Cross Time Caper, which was not that far in the past in terms of the comic book. So that's a tiny bit uncomfortable. That's a big retcon. In his defense, Warren Ellis didn't know how old Kitty Pryde was. He's admitted that. He said, yeah, I thought she was like 19, 20.
Yeah, that's very clear. I mean, even the way that Dodson is drawing her is older, but I think the other thing that we should probably give a quick distillation of this plot, which
I guess
I think has some really fun individual elements, but do not work as a cohesive whole at all. They have been hired by, I guess, some rich benefactor to find his daughter, and there is this. Is he a mutant? The guy that turns people into stone?
Yeah, I think so.
He is.
There's a guy an X-Men story, so yeah.
All right. So there's this mutant running around like serial killer style, turning people into stone, because he believes that he is the actual biblical Cain and needs to apologize to God through like ancient runes. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. But he's not the biblical Cain. That's Vandal Savage from the DC universe. Do we not know this?
And so there are these, what is this? F-66, sort of like a secret, X-Files type investigative unit. And then you've got Pryde and Wisdom kind of like trying to solve the case. There's some twists and turns. I guess there's another character who I'm not really even sure who she was, that was responsible for some of the villainy here. And then we also get introduced to Pete Wisdom's delightful family members, shall we say.
Oh, the Wisdom family is horrible. Can I make a brief tangent that I feel like is incredibly important to something you just said?
Yeah, go for it.
So the biblical Cain is not this guy, John Gideon, or whatever his name is. The biblical Cain, however, in the Marvel Universe, became the owner of the boarding house of mystery in Cleveland, where Abel lived with him. He took Howard the Duck and Beverly in when they had no money or place to stay, likely alongside the rest of the residents of the house. It's unknown how he knew Beverly or Howard before they arrived. This comes from Howard the Duck, Volume 3, Number 4, a Steve Gerber Max Comics series that apparently has the actual Cain and Abel in it. Also, Abel didn't die, which feels like an important part of that story.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe they finally made up. I would love it if Howard the Duck was in this little Pryde and Wisdom mini. It would definitely make it a little bit more interesting.
At this point, I'd love if actual biblical Marvel Comics Cain was in this.
Yeah,
not
sure.
the Spider-Man Cain. I don't care for him. Get mad at me, Spider-Man fans, whatever.
Well, and we don't see this John Gideon character until I think the third issue. And so occasionally he's referred to as Gideon. And I, for a split second, was like, Gideon's in this? This could get really fun.
Also, Marvel Universe Gideon, not biblical Gideon, which apparently we have to point out.
Yes. Well, I mean, given the circumstances of this mini, it makes sense. So
you understand that I am now searching to see if actual biblical Gideon has been in the Marvel Universe.
Well, that goes without saying, Zach. But Pete Wisdom has an absolutely terrible, like, conspiracy theorist father, a very nondescript sister, and I guess they're supposed to be important. I could care less about these characters.
His father and sister suck. They're boring.
Yeah, and every once in a while, Pete Wisdom like shoots some stuff out of his hands. I guess
Oh, his
that's
hot
cool.
knives? His hot knives?
Not to be
Hot
confused with Hot
knives.
Claws. He's got his
Oh.
own Hot Claws, and I don't know. This is just, and I love Terry Dodson. Lot of credit. Amazing artist. Very gracious with his time when I just met him at Comic-Con in October. But this is early Terry Dodson, and a lot of the panels and page work here don't have a lot of backgrounds. So there
Yeah.
are a ton of pages in these 3 issues where characters are just kind of floating in space and you're not really sure where they are. And I know I'm guilty of this as someone who's just, trying to learn how to make comics better. It's not always easy to figure out, but there are a lot of cases like that where there's not a lot of information about place. There's not a lot of information about even who certain characters are. There's a lot of characters that are put into silhouette. So you're not really sure who they are necessarily if they don't have a distinctive outline or contour. So I did not like this. And I'm getting the sense you didn't either.
No, I was telling you off air, and I'll repeat it for our dear listeners who were not on our internet connection call here. I have the Warren Ellis Excalibur Visionaries collection because I got them for $5 a piece, and I said, yes, I will spend $15 to get all of this X-Men.
Sounds fun. Sounds like a good idea.
Pryde and Wisdom is the last story in that collection. And I mean, look, the Ellis Excalibur is up and down. So I don't want to say I was suffering through all of it because I don't think that's fair to the entire run, but I was like not super into all of it. And by the time I got to Pryde and Wisdom, I got through the first issue and I said, nah, I'm done. I'm done. And never finished it until this podcast.
Well, and that's probably for the best because, as if the series didn't leave enough of a bad taste in your mouth, the final panel of this series is Pete Wisdom choking Kitty Pryde in anger. And I know it's supposed to be, I guess, this like playful, flirtatious move. It doesn't come across that way. It's very strange and a very weird way to end a comic book.
At best, it's an uncomfortable glimpse into a young Kitty Pryde sex life.
I didn't want to go there, but sure.
I mean, look, this is a romance comic. That's what Mr. Ellis is implying, and I am not a huge fan of that. I know we talked about Kitty Pryde shippers. I'm pretty sure Pete Wisdom's like at the bottom of this, right? Like
it should be, yes. It shouldn't really be on the list at all, unless I guess you're Chris Claremont and you're still bringing it up in wedding special books.
Yeah, that's fair. Chris, Chris, my boy, love you, man. You do some interesting stuff with Kitty Pryde at this point in your career.
Oh boy, he wants her to run for president now, right?
He had her run for president in X-Men: The End,
right?
Where she was married to Rachel Summers. She was the first gay president.
Hey. All right, let's get behind that.
So anyway, speaking of this list, this is worse than No More Humans, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
which is at 141 on our 171 issue list.
Yeah, I would go much lower than that. And it's an interesting comparison. Is another Kitty Pryde mini that we've covered on the show, which is Mechanics, which I almost think like that might have more merit than this. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think Mechanics is better.
Okay.
I think Mechanics is better. And that's at 151. Right under that, we've got that Chuck Austin Zorn retcon story madness. Yeah,
this is like in that right below that's Poptopia. We're in Poptopia realm here, right?
Because
like
it's better than Wildcats X-Men.
Uh-huh.
It's probably better than Heroes for Hope, like from a objective standpoint.
It has a beginning, middle, and end. I'll give it that. Is it all right? So is it better or worse than Poptopia? What do you think?
I think I'd rather reread Poptopia. I liked Poptopia once. I just have seen the error of my ways. I've never liked this.
Oh, yeah. So is this our new 154?
I think Pryde and Wisdom is our new number 154.
Okay. I'm glad we got through that. I didn't enjoy that very much.
Guys. Pete Wisdom's bad, actually. Okay, I take that back. In that Paul Cornell, Captain Britain in the MI13 run, he's dope. He's great. Because he plays the same role that Captain Britain plays in most of Excalibur, where he's the butt monkey. And that works.
Yeah, I guess if he's a target of ridicule, right?
Mhm.
All right, we need to talk about something good so I can get that out of the way. Can we talk about something good?
We can talk about Rogue and Gambit from this year, 2018. It was a
Yeah.
5-issue miniseries written by friend of the show, Kelly Thompson,
Woohoo!
and penciled by Pryde Perez. We talked about
Man,
this book when it first came out. The first issue was out, and we interviewed Kelly. And I said,
yes.
it's weird that this book is coming out. And I stand by that because I feel like this was the turning point. Like, if
The
you
turning point into what?
if you want to look at the history of X-Men comics, there is a turning point when Bendis leaves the books and when Secret Wars happens, where there's the whole IVX era and then the start of Resurrection that doesn't always hit off.
Yeah.
I honestly think that Rogue and Gambit is where things started to turn around again and said, hey guys, wait, I think we know what X-Men comics should be now. It's because Rogue and Gambit and X-Men Red both came out about the same time. And I think those two combined really pushed things into where we are now, where like I'm excited for X-Men book.
Well, it is let's keep talking on that for a second, because I like this tangent, because I think you may have a point in that probably the most exciting thing that happened in X-Men Gold was the bait and switch of the Kitty and Colossus wedding. And that doesn't happen unless you have this amazing mini before it to really set up the punchline there.
It's shocking that 5 issues make me feel, okay, I'm okay with Gambit and Rogue getting married all of a sudden.
Yes.
Like, that's all it took. Because they weren't a couple. They weren't a going concern and hadn't been since Antarctica?
It had certainly been a while. And
what was it? Shoot. The Peter Milligan run. I think they were together.
Okay.
They were. That's the last time. Like, so I guess what was that really good thing that had the mutant Hope who came to Alaska, and then Sinister Messiah Complex? That was the last time. That was the last time they were together.
Oh, that's still a bit of time.
Yeah, it's been a while. And then 5 issues of this miniseries, I'm like, oh yeah, they can get married. That's fine. They can be Mr. and Mrs. X, which is a bad title, but that's not the title of Rogue and Gambit.
I don't care. Are you reading that? That is a really fun book.
It's a great book with a bad title.
Well, hey, it's fine. They kind of had to have, well, they didn't really reveal what that was going to be beforehand, didn't they?
No, it was classified. It was classified.
It's okay.
The marketer in me says that's a bad move, and you should have just said it was Mr. and Mrs. X and let everyone assume it was a Kitty Pryde and Colossus book until proven otherwise. Make a fake cover.
Then just go back to Rogue and Gambit, right?
Yeah, and I mean, look,
we're being picky.
Anyway, let's talk about Rogue and Gambit. It's a Ring of Fire, I guess is the subtitle of this miniseries, because it's good.
Oh, man. Well, let's just start with the fact that Kelly Thompson knows what she's doing. Okay. Marvel also knows what they're doing by making Chris Anka the amazing cover artist of this series. Killer covers on every single issue. Especially this 3rd issue where it's a ring of past costumed Rogues and Gambits, or even number 4 where they're wearing each other's costumes. Just really fun, grab your eye. I want to pick this up. I want to read it. And then you get inside and is it Perry Perez?
Yeah, Pryde Perez.
Amazing artwork here. He's so beautiful.
His stuff is gorgeous, and I'm so glad that they saw his stuff, in the Marvel comics, and they said, okay, we're gonna push you up to the big leagues, because he's part of the rotating team on Uncanny X-Men. He did an arc on Gold. Like, they know that he has the potential to be a big guy, because he's got beautiful layouts, great character what's that thing when like characters speak with their body language? That's the one.
Yeah, and one of Thompson's strengths is writing these really intimate conversations that also have really funny punchlines in them. Like the
Yes.
recurring deal with Gambit having an issue with Rogue having kissed Deadpool. I'm laughing out loud while I'm reading some of these series, and yet you also get the emotional depth of the characters as you go through these 5 issues too. So it feels earned when it turns out that they're going to get hitched. And I think we complimented Kelly when she was on the show about the simple premise of this, which is that Rogue and Gambit have to go undercover to a couple's retreat. And that basic idea, regardless of, who the villain is or what, the way in which because the villain is more of a kind of a MacGuffin in this story.
Yeah, the villain is a plot mover to get Rogue and Gambit to confront their specific trauma and their specific issues with their relationship. And I think it works for this story because the story is not about stopping a supervillain. It's about these two people confronting their past using the language of comic book superheroes.
Yes. And, it ultimately culminates with Gambit really committing to Rogue and saying, hey, I understand that it's hard to be you, but I'm here and I'm going to be here for you. And there was a recent kind of recommitment of that in the last issue of Mr. and Mrs. X. And I don't know. It brings such new depth to both of the characters in terms of their insecurities, but also their commitment to one another. It's great. I think it's really well done.
Yeah, I like this story a lot. Going back to it, I was blown away with just how good this was. Like, this is an incredibly enjoyable comic. It hits a lot of the notes that I want. And I'm not like Rogue and Gambit. I like them. I like them more than most people. Let's be fair. And by most people, I mean most people on the planet Earth. As far as X-Men characters go, they aren't the top ones for me. They're not going to immediately sell me a book just by existing in it in the way that like a Nightcrawler would, for example. But like, I care about the relationship because of this story. Like,
yes,
this sold me on it. It said, okay, yeah, I'm in. This is good. This is smart. This is well written. I believe these guys. I'm rooting for these crazy kids.
Well, and in other hands, with another writer, you might not, you know what I mean? Frankly, you may not be as invested in these characters because the adventure might be different. The emotional connection would not be the same. Clearly Kelly understands what these characters are about and why we should care about them. Because, there have been other writers that have tried to tackle these two as a couple, and it's not always successful. Here it is,
And one other thing I love, and this is just me being someone who has an X-Men podcast, Kelly Thompson knows her X-Men.
Oh yeah.
She has continuity cuts in there that I have to scratch my head sometimes, say, okay, wait, what exactly is this from? I know it's from something. Like, and that's not necessary to make a good story by any means, but it does add to it for longtime readers of this giant soap opera that they can point out and say, hey, you remember this thing? You remember this thing? You remember this thing? It all matters. It all builds into their relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she does pluck these pivotal scenes from X history, and even like tiny details. Like I appreciate that she was willing to bring up Uncanny Avengers canon into this story. I appreciate that, there's jokes about Gambit's cats. Like you can tell that everything that she's read of the characters matters, and it makes for a really great, believable story. So where would you put this on the list? I really enjoy this series.
I enjoy it a lot too. Here's what I'm going to say. As a starting point, at least, this is better than What If Wolverine Was Lord of the Vampires at number 37. Okay.
Yeah, I think, that's a good starting point. And I think kudos to to the artwork here too. That may push it up for me. I know you're a huge fan of the Secret Wars Battle World E is for Extinction.
It's very good.
Would you put it above that?
I'm debating because I don't think it's as good as Astonishing X-Men Dangerous.
Okay.
At number 31.
Yep.
And then between all that, we've got X Factor Endgame, E is for Extinction, and then the Storm and Ileana Magic series. I do think this is better than Storm and Ileana Magic.
I do too, and I would be willing to put it above an Endgame, just because you can just tell the amount of craft that went into this book. It is so much fun to read, and Endgame for me has a lot of nostalgia power, but I feel like this does too. It definitely harkens back and thinks from, Adjectiveless X-Men Volume 1, like. Well, I guess it's Volume 2, right?
Look, let's not try and talk about how to number Adjectiveless X-Men. I've got some feelings, and it doesn't make sense.
No, I know. So I'd be willing to put it in at 32, but I know you probably want to go to bat for the Battle World E is for Extinction.
E is for Extinction gets weird at the end. It doesn't technically tell a coherent story all the time. It's just real pretty. Thank you, Ramon Villalobos. But yeah, I think this is perfectly good as our new number 32. It's Rogue and Gambit.
All right. That's a great place for it. Go check that out, guys. It's on, all 5 issues are on Unlimited now.
It is. Hey, Adam, we got a weird one.
Okay.
We had a different story picked here, and then I discovered what this story was about, and I had to. I sent Adam a message, said, no, screw that. We're talking about this one. Pick which one of these 3 you don't want to talk about the most, because we're replacing it.
Well, let's kind of dip our toes into this for a second. So before we reveal, well, they've already read the notes, so they probably know what I'm talking about already, but
maybe. I'm still curious how many people actually read the notes, because I just kind of word vomit it to them every week.
All right. So what we're going to talk about is from 2004, and it is written by who? Who is our writer here, Zach?
It's written by Chris Claremont. He's pretty good at comics.
Okay. So that's a good starting point, just so everybody kind of like is getting used to, it's like the frog in the boiling water. Like we're slowly turning up the heat here to reveal. This is also a Wolverine comic. All right. Now, the other half of this title, though, is something I was quite surprised existed, because when you told me this was a real object, a real one-shot, I was suspicious that you had made it up. So what is this? Because this is a crossover, this is...
I don't know how
is this canonical? I don't know, but
I don't know enough about Witchblade to tell you if it's in continuity or not. I assume it's not.
Yes, folks.
This is Witchblade Wolverine.
Yes, not Witchblade and Wolverine, just Witchblade Wolverine.
Adam, I gotta ask, because you are closer to that Image generation than I am.
Yeah.
How much previous interaction with Mark Silvestri's Witchblade had you had?
0. I knew that it existed. My Image knowledge probably extends with Silvestri to about maybe a dozen issues of Cyberforce. Okay. And then really it's after that he starts taking on, this Top Cow Productions banner. He's doing Witchblade, and then he starts to get into this, real kind of like lad mag. This is like the age of Maxim magazine, and like he's doing this and Fathom, and he's definitely got an entire office of people who can kind of draw like him, but clearly can't draw anywhere. Like they're not nearly as good visual storytellers.
No.
So in terms of the characters, you got me, man. I don't know.
All I've ever known about Witchblade is she does not wear very many clothes, and she's vaguely magical. She's got the Witchblade, which is apparently this armor that Bayonetta's I guess I don't.
Cover his private parts and
I
his
guess
sharp.
I don't understand the Witchblade, guys. And honestly, this comic has not made me want to hear more about NYPD officer Sarah Pazzini's and her exploits with the Witchblade. But can we let's take all that aside? How weird is this story?
Oh man. I mean, I think I got about 5 pages in and then flipped back to see who wrote it. And I almost fell out of my chair when I saw that Claremont did this. The basic premise here is that that Wolverine and Witchblade on page 1 are getting hitched in Vegas, and then they go into a limousine and the Witchblade pops out of Wolverine's chest. What is going on? Neither of them know who they are. They spend most of the issue trying to figure that out. Some other guys come and attack them.
They find $1 million.
They find $1 million in a briefcase. They use early 2000s cell phones. They get into a fight with someone else wearing the Witchblade, who I guess we're supposed to know.
No, she's never appeared before or after. I checked.
Oh, okay.
No, this isn't just us not knowing Witchblade continuity. This is Chris Claremont not introducing his characters.
Great. So yeah, we spend the majority of this issue with Wolverine with no shirt on. And I guess this is just, tradition for this character, but Witchblade is wearing this skimpy, weird sort of halter top corset thing that doesn't cover much.
She's wearing what the adult bookstores would sell as a playful wedding dress up costume for your adult times.
Sure. I mean that I guess that's what this is. It's very odd.
I don't understand it. My wife's wedding dress looked nothing like this.
Yeah, we're looking at this sort of weird, tube toppy thing. There's a very short mini skirt. She's got a belly button piercing. At one point, she's also wearing her police badge around her neck.
That's the funniest freaking panel in this whole thing.
It is. And it ends as suddenly as it begins.
They're still married. They're going to take their $1 million and live their lives, even though they both admit they don't know who the other person is. They did just get into a big old fight, and they have $1 million, so they're just going to run away with each other and live happily ever after. And what is this story even, Adam?
I don't know. I mean, last page is, we've got the mill, we've got the dream, Finn. It's like, okay. I don't know who the bulk of the characters are in this book. I don't think Chris Claremont knows who the bulk of the characters are. It is a very short book, so we're not talking about like a ton of time to even tell a story here. And hey, like, this sort of like Max Silvestri / Jim Lee style art by Eric Balsaldua and 4 separate inkers, it might be good for like a pinup art. There's varying qualities of inking given the page. It's not terrible, but the colors on this are really terrible and orangey and glary. And
it's very early 2000s coloring.
It is just difficult to look at, and it makes 0 sense.
Yeah, do you remember when we read the now classic Wildcats X-Men?
Yes, I do.
And how it had 3 out of 4 of its issues make sense, but that last one was nuts?
I do remember that, yes.
I feel like I understand that last one a bit better than I understand this story.
I think that's fair.
I don't understand that last one at all.
No, this is a weird book with people like trying to stab each other after they just met and digging drawings into a tabletop for no reason. And everybody just sort of being like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of the Witchblade. I've been around. And you're like, wait a minute, 3 seconds ago, you didn't know who you were. What is going on? We never really get an idea of why they're amnesiacs. It's just bad. I'm just going to say it. It's bad.
Oh no, this is a bad comic. This is one of the badder comics we've read. This is one of the badder comics that Chris Claremont's written. I'm gonna say that right now.
It certainly doesn't make a really solid argument for post 1991 Chris Claremont. That's for sure.
He did this as a favor to Mark Silvestri, right? Like,
I mean, one would hope, right?
Like, he was like, "Hey, Mark, I know we've been buds. I know we did Inferno. That was pretty good. A lot of people like us. I'll do this for you as a friend. Also, my career is fine. I guess I'm only writing Extreme X-Men right now. They won't let me have the good book.
Oh boy.
Man, this is not a good comic book. Chris, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's definitely an eyesore. And, if you find this while you're, digging through a long box somewhere, you may just want to flip through it just to be like, what? But certainly do not try to actively hunt this down. It may hurt your brain.
That said, if you do find this in a long box, do exactly what I'm doing and slap that on the counter because, man, this thing is just nuts. There's 2 covers, so you can always...
Right. You could get a variant.
You can always get a variant. Witchblade Wolverine. Man, Witchblade fans, please tell us if Witchblade is actually secretly good because I have all of 1 bit of exposure to her. And right now, it's very, very not good. I think it's worse than the worst Claremont comic on here, which is God Loves Man Kills 2 at 169.
That would put this in our bottom.
That's bottom 5 territory.
Bottom 5, yeah. So okay, so our under God Loves Man Kills 2, we have the Joseph Magneto mini. Which I actually did find in the wild and promptly put back in the box when I saw it in the store.
What?
Because I didn't want those cursed objects in my house.
It's so bad. Oh,
it was only the first 3 issues. If it was a full 4-issue mini, I was tempted to mail it to you, but I thought that
I understand that feeling a lot, actually.
Okay,
I've had that experience where it's like, I don't know if I want this because there's 5 out of 6 issues and it's issue 3 that's missing.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to want to read the whole dang thing, no matter how bad it is. It's why I still haven't read Trouble. Also a bad romance comic by Terry Dodson.
All right. At 171, we have NYX, 172, Phoenix Legacy of Fire, and
better than Legacy of Fire.
The Draco.
Definitely better than Legacy of Fire, which is a very bad comic.
I am not as offended as I was when I read NYX, but I do think there's a skeevy factor to this comic that puts it kind of in the same category. Like,
NYX was also gross.
Yes, but it was underage characters and gross. This is at least a grown woman with her stuff, bouncing around for 20 pages, which I get the impression is probably the purpose of the character, which I never understood. Like characters like that.
Witchblade cannot be a supportive undergarment, can it? Like that sounds like the worst.
I don't know. I guess if Red Sonja can wear a chainmail bikini made out of like little discs, I guess that could work. I don't know. Comics, everybody.
Okay, wait. I want to pose this to our listeners.
Oh.
Rank these 3 people in whatever order you will. Witchblade, Red Sonja, and Vampirella.
Oh. Yeah. For support, costume support.
Oh, I was just going to be like as good characters because I'm pretty sure I know the exact order of the bottom. I don't know which one would be considered the best. I've read no comics with any of them. I'm just not a big Conan guy. I read like the start of his run. It was okay. Just never got into Conan, so I never decided to read Red Sonja.
Yeah, okay. So fans, there's your challenge from Zach. Is this better or worse than the Joseph Magneto series?
I think it's worse.
All right.
I think Joseph's bad in more interesting ways. This is bad in more nonsensical ways.
At least that Joseph series got a couple of things where I just laughed because it was just so terrible, right? I guess I'll give it a little credit for that.
Right. Like if I got caught reading that Joseph series, people would say, haha, you're reading a bad comic. There's some people who would judge me pretty hard about Witchblade Wolverine for whatever reason. It's bad, guys. It's a bad book. It's not well told.
No.
Oh.
All right. So this is our new 171.
This is 171. Man, right. that was a list. Thank you, WMQ Comics. I assume Dan, but I cannot be sure. That was sure an episode of the podcast that we did. Mr. Rec, where can people find you if for some reason they are intrigued by this particular brand of yours and want to go further down this rabbit hole?
All right, guys, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy, and new pages of Bish and Jube's Attack the Mansion continue to go up on adamrec.tumblr.com every X-Men Monday. Zach, where can people find you?
Hey, people can find me on XavierFiles.com. That's where I have all the latest and greatest X-Men news, articles, some other stuff. Who knows? Maybe this podcast. Definitely there, too. I'm also on the Twitter at XavierFiles. I do stuff there.
Yes.
I don't know how to describe it. I mostly tweet about X-Men. Also today, confused a lot of prominent comic book journalists about what Marvel's marketing strategy is with a bad lie that I don't know why anyone believed.
You made a great graphic today. I was very impressed by that. I think you fooled some people.
It was in PowerPoint, and it literally took 10 minutes. And most of that was just finding a transparent X-Men logo so I could have the Uncanny X-Men.
There you go.
Very good.
Well done. Well done.
Man, this is really topical today. By Monday, no one's going to remember what we're talking about. And if anyone ever goes back into the past to listen to these episodes, like they're catching up, I know there's people who are catching up right now. So I'm talking to you who are not listening to this on December 17th of 2018, who is like March. I don't know what we're talking about either. Sometimes we just go on tangents. There was a marketing thing. It went weird. I made a fake thing. People believed it. I giggled. That's the whole joke.
And that's all you need to know. Darn it.
Anyway, but what you also need to know, one last thing, Adam, and I'm very sad that you cut me off here because I think I was about to make an important point about patreon.com/XavierFiles where you can support the show. You get to be part of the Battle of the Atom Boat Club. Nope, that's not what we have. It's a book club.
Yes. A boat
maybe
club.
that should be the $50,000 level. We'll buy a boat and you can be on it.
I think we're gonna need. How much is a nice boat? Maybe we could make a yacht. You know, have like X-Men cruises.
I'm intrigued by this idea.
I am. I'm scared
if
too.
If anyone has the money that would allow us to buy a yacht with your monthly pledge, charities exist, people.
Yeah, we don't need a yacht. I mean, there's other people that could. You know.
I'm landlocked. I have no use for a yacht in Ohio. We've got a couple of small lakes around me. That's about it, guys.
I mean, I could use a yacht. I'm near the water, but there's better uses of your money, friends.
That's how we could split the Patreon. You get a yacht, I'll get the cash. I think this is a great plan. Anyway, guys, go to patreon.com. You get to make us talk about very bad comics if you want. I know that a lot of people have done that recently, and I appreciate the very bad comics that we get to talk about because I genuinely enjoy reading them.
Yeah,
it's a problem I have in my life, and I'm working to overcome it. But the 90s were a very long time, and they put out so many comics, so I'm gonna read a lot of the bad ones. Anyway, we need to wrap up this episode. Adam, good episode.
Great episode.
Next week's Christmas, guys. Who saw this coming? I didn't, for sure. So we got some Christmas stories. We're actually taking a break from the user-requested Patreon stuff to celebrate the season of giving, and all of the associated holidays there throughout. But that's about it. I gotta stop saying the words with my mouth. This has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it! Get it!
Okay, so we kind of went a little wild at the end there, and I take most of the blame for that.
I thought that was fun. I don't know. What are yours?